is this man? This is not the Odysseus I know. Today I'm going to analyze the writing of the Odyssey and contrast it to another adaptation, Epic. Don't worry, in case you haven't listened to it, I'll be breaking it down. At the end, I'll also give my review of the movie. Before we begin, I've got some disclaimers. I haven't read the Odyssey or the Iliad yet. Boo! I know. They've been on my to-be-read for years. Considering this and my lack of knowledge about the historical accuracy, this video instead is going to be focused on the storytelling. Also, this video is all my personal opinion and interpretation. I'm going to be talking some smack and having fun with it, so you've been warned. If you disagree with my or commenters' takes, that's completely okay. Just remember to stay respectful. And of course, major spoilers ahead. Now, let's dig in. Getting right to the point. Epic ruined the Odyssey for me. If I hadn't listened to the musical before it, I genuinely believe I would have liked the movie far more. While the bones of both stories are obviously similar, being based on the same tale, they are such unique pieces. Different characters, different stories, different messages, different Odysseuses. For those of you who don't know what Epic is, it's a musical adaptation of Homer's The Odyssey, created by Jorge Rivera Herranz. I hope I said his name right. It's a 9-part series of albums that reimagines the story, and it's absolutely brilliant! I truly recommend listening to it. These are some songs that I love, but honestly go from start to finish. It's filled with incredible heart. If you don't like musicals, just give this one a chance. The music is spectacular. Anyway, you get my drift. The question is, why did I ultimately enjoy Epic more than the film? And that comes down to 2 words: emotional investment. The musical is filled with deep emotion and passion. Odysseus is a strong man, compelled by his love for his wife Penelope, doing anything he can to go home to her and his son Telemachus. His crew are soldiers with a brotherhood bond, sailing the sea with trust in their leader and hope in their hearts to return home. Penelope is a loyal woman, holding out 20 years from remarrying the throne, choosing to believe her husband will return. Telemachus is a bright young son, training to protect his mother and to become worthy of the throne one day. The people of Ithaca are consumed by rage at Odysseus' absence, turning to cruelty without a proper leader. Poseidon, who's absent from the movie, is a terrifying force possessed by ruthlessness. The gods play integral roles to the story in deciding Odysseus' fate, with Athena standing up for him against the might of Zeus. Every piece and character is full of personality and soul, coming together to make a massive journey with a passionate Odysseus at the center, a man who will stop at nothing to go home. So tell me why this weakling in the Odyssey is noted at least 3 whole times that he doesn't want to go home? Who is this man? Before I rip into it, I'd like to say that I believe it's fine for these adaptations to be different from each other. It's evident that depending on the creator and the audience, that the messages focused on in the story will differ, and there will be creative liberties. It's subjective which one you'll prefer, and that's a good thing. Everyone has different experiences. Anyway, let's delve into the movie before I compare it to Epic. Odysseus is quiet. Even during pressing moments, he speaks and shouts in lowercase. I enjoyed Matt Damon in the role. He's a great, compelling actor. What he was given to work with, though, was not what I was expecting. The story starts in a strange place. Telemachus is searching for his father, who has been missing for years after winning the Trojan War. We follow his perspective alongside Odysseus's that reveals he's safe with Calypso. With her, he recounts his journey up until that point. Telemachus is worried that his father is even alive, but this tension is immediately dissipated by seeing him with Calypso. It would have added far more stakes to the narrative if we had 2 timelines occurring instead, following Telemachus as we try to track down his father, and seeing Odysseus from the start of his journey. Sure, you could say there's tension in that Odysseus has lost his memories, but it's obvious that the story won't progress unless he regains them. About his journey, it was interesting and gross. But first, I'll start with my thoughts on the characters. The crew. From the start until the end, I didn't connect with Odysseus's men. Besides from a few lines by Eurylochus, there was basically no setup of their characters or insight into their bond as a brotherhood. The most we got was a unison of humming and men sweating together in uncomfortable situations. I didn't feel a heart to the ship. They felt like a group of acquaintances who happened to be going through it hard. There wasn't much depth to their relationships, and it made them feel like strangers to me. With one exception, however, the siren scene. When one of the men succumbs to the temptation of the sirens, he unplugs his ears and leaps into the water. The men tried to stop him but failed, and his comrade, who had been sitting beside him, looks overcome with pain about his death. These couple of seconds focused on his expression was the closest I felt to them. Aside from that though, the number of the crew honestly didn't make much sense. I'm pretty sure they never state the number of soldiers traveling with him, but in Epic it's 600 men. This movie definitely didn't have 600. They travel on 3 ships, 1 large and 2 smaller, but while we sail through the ocean, the cinematography normally focuses on the one. When we stop by the islands, there's a large crowd of men. Many of them are killed during the journey, but with the way the crew are shot, their absences don't look significant. We could lose 100 men, and I wouldn't know, because Odysseus is always framed with a handful of them. It would be more impactful to see the crew all on a large ship. That way their losses would be obvious visually. Telemachus. I'll be talking about the casting toward the end in my review, but for now I'll just say he looks incredibly polished. Shiny, even. His character was okay, he was likable. My gripe with him, though, was him repeating, "You have wise eyes, Athena's eyes," like 3 times. Sorry. Like 3 times. I do like his cleverness in the end, though, when he realizes the beggar is actually his father, since the dog Argos passed when he met him. At the start of the movie, Eumaeus had said Argos was still alive despite his old age, only to see his owner return. That detail was a nice touch, and it made for a sweet moment. Penelope! I could not stand her! She pissed me off! I have made a nemesis! Penelope is angry in this movie. And while I don't mind the source of her anger, I am infuriated by the way she expresses it and the way the story gratifies her. I watched the Odyssey 2 times for this video, and on my rewatch, I disliked her even more. Penelope is distressed by her situation. She's torn about Odysseus' absence. While she longs to see her husband again, she is enraged by the dangerous situation she's been put in because of him. She flips between saying, "He's dead, he's not coming back," and "Of course he's coming back, I need my king." She hates the suitors who harass her. They are vile men who don't deserve the throne or her company. Penelope believes that she should be queen on her own, and that it's sexist to need a man to rule Ithaca. It torments her that the men don't respect her, and that her son Telemachus would think he is entitled to her position. However, while she feels this way, she simultaneously hates being queen and wants to run away from Ithaca entirely. These 2 pieces of her contrast like a fork scraping against a plate. Why would Penelope care so much about being queen instead of raising her son for the throne if she didn't even want to care for Ithaca? It's a major point to her character that nobody can tell her what to do, even her beloved Odysseus. Girl power! Because why should we value or care for the opinions of our husbands, or our sons for that matter? No, be independent, queen! While trying to seduce Penelope into marrying him, Antinous basically says, "Queen, please, you've done your duty. You need to think about yourself." And she melts into his touch, if only for a moment. It is Antinous who pulls away from her to kiss her hand, and she only snaps out of this when he reveals he'd rather their son inherit the throne over Telemachus. From this scene, it's clear that she values her independence at about the same level she values her husband. Because if Antinous had lied and said that Telemachus would keep the throne, Penelope would have probably married him. About Telemachus, God, I feel bad for him. He is the victim of her distress. At the start of the movie, he says Odysseus will return home, and he's mad that Penelope is entertaining the suitors at all. She lashes out at him and says his father isn't coming home, and he knows nothing as a leader if he thinks that she shouldn't remarry. Later, Telemachus insists that Penelope should consider remarrying for the safety of Ithaca, and she lashes out at him again, now saying, "So you deny me your father and want me to live with one of these snakes? What on earth do you want him to say, Penelope?" Telemachus goes on to say, in a calm voice by the way, he cannot kill the suitors, otherwise he will be exiled and unable to sit on the throne. And his mother, all smug, spits at him, "'Cause only a man can sit on it." Penelope, you need to lock in. The men of Ithaca do not respect you as a leader. You are unable to control the location of their meals, let alone their wrath. Do you believe, as a queen, if these men do not trust you to rule them, that the men who come to invade Ithaca will bow to your leadership? It is completely naive. Instead of realizing the reality of how Ithaca is, Penelope sulks, as if her complaining will change the ways of these men who are characterized to be nothing but foolish brutes. With all of this anger, she cannot safely express onto her suitors, for they would overpower her. She instead directs this energy at her son, who will sit through it. She snaps at Telemachus. "My knowledge? My experience? That's all nothing compared to the bristles on your chin. How about, Penelope? You teach this knowledge to your son, who is heir to the throne when you eventually pass. Train him to be a worthy king, a smart leader, but no, that would be a productive step forward." And it keeps going. Telemachus calmly asks her, "Do you want peace or do you want revenge?" A valid question, to which she screams in his face, "I want Odysseus!" And from this line, it's made obvious that she would rather treat Telemachus as a man than be a role model to her son. She would rather be cared for than care for him as a stable mother. It is not Telemachus' fault for any of this, but she treats him as if it is. And with all of this, none of it gets resolved. There is no reconciliation scene, there is no moment of reflection. No, it is simply a way of life. That was a lot. Let's move on to the gods. Sadly, they aren't really here and end up being incredibly underutilized. Zeus is relegated to making some lightning and thunder and is mentioned only by his lore. Yes, he strikes the ship in half after the crew eat the sun god's cow, but that's about it. Poseidon is simply a superstition since the nobody scene wasn't included, meaning the Cyclops didn't have Odysseus' name to curse. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, the Cyclops is supposed to ask Odysseus what his name is, for him to reply, "Nobody." Except when they escape, Odysseus shouts his name in pride, hence the Cyclops cursing him to Poseidon, who torments their journey home. This scene was also important to Odysseus' characterization. It showed that he was smart for lying to the Cyclops, and that the Trojan horse wasn't a fluke. And it revealed his pride, since he wanted the Cyclops to know it was he who defeated him. Oh, I also have beef with the Cyclops in this movie. Because Odysseus ate a singular piece of cheese, they didn't even kill the sheep yet, and bro eats them for it. It makes him unsympathetic because they didn't actually do anything wrong in this version. Anyway, since the nobody scene was straight up removed from the movie, it explains Poseidon's absence. Athena isn't Athena. She is beside Odysseus from the start, and instead of being the goddess of wisdom and strategic warfare, she's a reflection of Odysseus' guilt. She doesn't stand alone as a character, but rather she serves to be an extension of him, acting as his internal moral compass. I've seen lots of praise for the ambiguous nature of the gods, and how they're manifested through nature and beheaded priestesses, rather than being portrayed by actors who interfere with the story. I've also seen talk of this being in the style of the director, Christopher Nolan, who likes to ground his films in reality. It's fine if you like it, but I enjoy the characters of the gods and would have liked to see them in the plot since they are major players. About Calypso? Man, what was that? First of all, the island looks bland. It's two colors. They're meant to be in a paradise, but it's a desert with knee-length water. Secondly, the actress, oh my, I'll be complaining about her in the casting section. Calypso is supposed to be in love with Odysseus. She keeps him trapped on the island for years as she wants to be with him forever. But here, she decides to stop feeding him the lotus flower that's been blocking his memories. And then she helps him return home? So that was an odd choice? What is her character supposed to be here? She's a woman wrapped in a tortilla with no desire of her own, instead of being, I don't know, a divine nymph? Let's fire through some other notable characters. Circe was alright, I suppose, but her revolting transformation scene went on for far too long. It was unnecessarily disgusting. Antinomus's character, I believe, was the best of the movie. I'm not going to uncover him here because I'm thinking about making an entire character analysis on him, so let me know in the comments if you'd like to see that. Helen was brief but interesting. I was intrigued by her guilt and her seemingly terrible circumstances. Agamemnon was talked up to be this terrifyingly powerful man with his cool helmet, but his voice completely threw me off, and his flashback scene being undressed before his wife grossed me out? Just me? Okay. Eumaeus was pretty good. Sinon's character talked like he was from modern day. It was ridiculously casual. Actually, that's a problem of this entire movie. Everyone is speaking in their normal, modern American accents, and it's speaking like a normal modern American who just happens to know some unique adjectives from time to time. The dialogue and speech aren't stylized to ancient Greece, despite it being set in that time, which is such a missed opportunity. Now, let's finally dig into Odysseus' character. Unfortunately, I've got some major issues with him. The largest one probably being how the plot is handed to him. A major part of Odysseus is supposed to be his cleverness. However, here, the solutions are given to him without question. Calypso tells him not to eat the lotus flower in order to regain his memories, and then pushes him to do it at his refusal. Agamemnon tells Odysseus to go home in disguise to assess whether he will be betrayed upon his return. And Tiresias tells him to avoid the sirens, sail past the whirlpool to ultimately keep more men alive, and that if the crew kill the sun god's cows, they will all die except for him. Athena is the one who leads him up the hill to find his man eating the cow, which makes his quick escape from the island possible. This sucks! So bad! Instead of seeing Odysseus organically navigate the plot and come to his own conclusions using his wits, he is spoiled for most of the movie, with so many characters holding his hand throughout the journey. Another component to this is how some situations have obvious answers, such as when he realizes Circe's trick. His men have disappeared and there's screaming pigs outside, he shot an animal who transformed back into a man, the food looks awful, and she has so much of it despite being a lone woman. She's speaking so suspiciously, it's near comical, and after all that, he only refuses the food once he has physical evidence before him, that being their rings. This scene didn't convey Odysseus' brilliance to me, since it was an obvious situation. There was also a lot of telling not showing going on. Characters are constantly talking about how great Odysseus is, that he's intelligent, fast, strong, that no jail cell could hold him. This high praise is excessive and wouldn't be necessary if he actually demonstrated these traits consistently in the story. Contrasted against this reputation, Odysseus' personality is quiet and remorseful in this version, with the focus of his character being his guilt over Troy and the death of his men. Even the way the narrative illustrates him is at an arm's distance. Let's take a look at the crew trying to escape the Cyclops scene. The framing of this moment feels logical rather than distraught. Some men escape through the cave opening, but others haven't made it, so Odysseus runs and jumps back inside. Immediately, we cut to him sitting by the fire with the men. Everyone is collected. It's a small scene, but it didn't elicit emotion from me where it could have. He could have gone back for his men who were screaming, and we could have had a moment inside where he reassures them that he isn't going to leave anyone behind, to demonstrate his capability as a leader. But instead, the moment is treated like the stepping stone it is to move the plot forward. Continuing on from this, when they are able to escape, Odysseus endangers his and everyone's life by shooting the Cyclops. His reasoning being, we lost good men, except he just lost more by willingly aggravating the creature. If this moment was set up with seeing the rage rippling through him, it would have made more sense. But his demeanor doesn't reveal much, and instead of empathizing with his reasoning, I was more annoyed by his recklessness. It didn't feel clever, which is, again, a major characteristic of his character. Most scenes would have benefited for us to hear Odysseus' thoughts, or to have the characters argue. That way the journey would feel more arduous and morally challenging. Because the only thing we see is Odysseus' quick decision-making with little room for explanation. Compare this to Epic, where Odysseus is pained and tormented by every decision he makes, crying out to the gods for their help and weeping with his men. About his connection with the crew, the only character he really talks to is Eurylochus, who constantly disagrees with him and takes charge, despite being second in command. The crew are meant to have been together for years, with Odysseus as their leader. He treated them with concern for their lives, but that was the extent of his care. There weren't personal connections to them, but a moral obligation. Adding to this, there's his tone of voice. When he finds out the men have eaten the sun god's cows, he says, "I'm not the problem, I wanted you to live." It's such a nonchalant voice. There wasn't agency to his tone. This is the same when he confronts Calypso. He's mad in lowercase, although he's telling off a toddler. There was plenty of room for highly emotional moments in his journey, but they were addressed with small concern, as if it would be overdramatic to scream. Of course, this is merely a part of his character in the story. He's allowed to be a soft-spoken man. But I much prefer following a protagonist like Odysseus of Epic, since his passion made for an incredibly emotional experience. I don't dislike his character in the movie though. In fact, I think he's thoroughly detailed. One of those details being how Odysseus sounds his bow to make the moment a hunt. It illustrates his morality and is consistently done during the movie, with Antinous being struck with fear, recognizing the hunting sound in the final fight. His themes as a character are valuable too, offering meaningful discussion. It's just a matter of comparison for me. I think in a different story, I would really enjoy following him. Before I delve into Epic, let's explore these positive aspects. I admire the siren song scene. It was quite poetic and Matt Damon's acting was incredible. Odysseus says the siren song was all the things you wanted to be, and then all the things you wish you never wished for. It was a delicious itch you want to scratch, but you find it under the skin and can't reach it. So the delicious itch becomes unbearable. It told you that what you want most is what you most can't have. And what you most can't have is what you already had and lost. This is gorgeous writing, and it says so much about him and his feelings towards going home. I'm going to read a post I saw by Stories with Kiki. I like the way she explains it. The siren song does not have to prove what is waiting on the shore. It only has to make the ship you are already on feel insufficient. You can hear a desire without making it your instruction. You can grieve the person you might have been and still remain loyal to the person you are becoming. On top of these themes, I love that the song was muted. It forces the audience into his shoes as they imagine what their siren song would sound like. Odysseus' story is one of a traumatized soldier. He looks at the world with a focus on the humanity of it all. He is horrified by Troy and breaking Zeus's law. He's guilt-ridden over all of the death. and views himself as unworthy of returning home to Penelope and Telemachus, let alone ruling Ithaca. Finally, let's compare all of this to Epic. Continuing with Odysseus. His story begins by killing an infant, a crazy start that sets the stage for who he is as a man. Zeus, the bastard himself, comes down with Prince Hector's son. He explains that if Odysseus lets Hector's son grow, the boy will seek vengeance for his father and kill the people of Ithaca. Kill his wife, Penelope. Zeus says the blood on your hands is something you won't lose. All you can choose is whose. Odysseus cries out, he will raise him as his own. I'd rather bleed. Surely there must be another way. All of which Zeus rejects. So he makes the choice and kills the boy. Here is a moral dilemma of a man. He starts his journey with bright eyes and a tendency for mercy. He loves his crew and is despaired by their passing. But it comes to a point in his journey where he must decide between saving the rest of his crew or coming home to his wife. His best man realizes with horror what his leader has decided and says, "But we'll die." Odysseus replies, "I know." He is haunted by the 600 men he lost under his command. Their deaths weigh on his bones, as well as the deaths of his enemies. But it is a burden he carries consciously, as he decides what matters most to him against everything in the world is his family. Odysseus is at fault for the death of his men. He makes poor decisions in battle, or willingly mass sacrifices their lives in his selfishness. His hard decisions add so much intrigue to the plot of Epic. It forces me into his shoes as I imagine what I would do, and I grapple the pain with him as he spirals. Whereas in the film, he loses his crew in battle, and their deaths aren't framed as purposeful, cruel decisions on his part, because they're not really. The final album of Epic has so much aura. Odysseus has finally left Calypso. He's defeated Poseidon, and now he has returned to his home, Ithaca, only to find his men have betrayed him. They seek the throne. They plan to kill his son and do unspeakable things to his wife. Throughout his journey, he has learned the hard lessons from the god of the sea. Ruthlessness is mercy upon ourselves. The men beg for mercy, and he is overcome by rage, slaughtering them all to protect his family. As he fights, there is no hope for his opponents. He built the castle. He's the strongest warrior. It is an effortless battle that demonstrates his massive strength and skill. Once it has been done, he returns to Penelope and asks if she will fall in love with him again. He is not the same man she once knew. He is not her kind and gentle husband. He sacrificed everything and everyone to get here, to come home to her. Penelope reassures him that she will fall in love with him again. No matter how, where, or when, he is the man she loves. The music is so full of heart, reprising "I'm just a man." It's so good. In the movie, when he returns to Ithaca, he remains in secret, concocting the plan to kill the suitors, having them trapped inside the palace for Penelope's challenge. Oh yeah, and he gives mercy to the people who surrender. Again, I much prefer the grandness and brutality of Epic. Then of course, there's the ending. In the movie, he leaves Ithaca, his kingdom behind, leaving it to his son, who he hasn't trained or spent time with and clearly isn't ready. I guess you could say there was a time jump in between? I don't think by that much, though. This choice was foreshadowed by his and Penelope's conversation at the start of the movie, wishing to run away together. Penelope, who has complained this entire movie that she just wants to be in charge, leaves when she finally has the opportunity to do that. I suppose it makes sense though. She loves him more than the throne. This decision to leave realizes Odysseus as a man who doesn't want to be a leader. This whole movie kind of felt like he didn't want to be in charge. He was like the substitute teacher that's huffing as he tries to explain instructions that were left for him. Their guilt arcs are extremely different as well. In the movie, he feels guilt for the death of his men, but in Epic, he feels guilt for becoming a monster. Singing, "I'm the only one whose line I haven't crossed. What if the greatest threat we'll find across the sea is me? What if I'm the monster? What if I'm in the wrong?" He also contemplates the guilt of his enemies, humanizing them. Is the Cyclops struck with guilt when he kills? Is he up in the middle of the night? Or does he end my men to avenge his friend and then sleep knowing he has done him right? I want to sing these lines, but I might get copyrighted. Maybe that's better for your ears though. About his guilt around Troy, he sings, "Does a soldier use a wooden horse to kill sleeping Trojans 'cause he is vile? Or does he throw away his remorse and save more lives with guile?" He ends the song Monster with, "And if I gotta drop another infant from a wall in an instant so we all don't die, then I'll become the monster, and then we'll make it home." After he soothes himself by singing Penelope, her name repeated over and over in his journey. The biggest difference between these two protagonists is their priorities. The decisions we make in life all stem from what we ultimately prioritize. If you prioritize your own happiness above all, in the end, your loved ones will be displaced for it. If you prioritize the law or social standing above all, in the end, you may betray your own family. In Epic, Odysseus makes it clear that he will sacrifice everything for Penelope. It contrasts the movie, where he struggles with the concept of going home as he focuses on his mental health and redeeming his morality. He's a more passive protagonist compared to Odysseus of Epic, who grips every decision with blood on his hands. Let's analyze the phrase, "Ruthlessness is mercy upon ourselves." It's sung throughout the entire journey of Epic, Poseidon mentally carving the message into his bones. It stems from their confrontation with the Cyclops, where Odysseus leaves the creature alive and thereby dooms his crew to Poseidon's vengeful wrath. The god claims that what brought about their downfall was Odysseus's naive tendency for mercy. But that wasn't the real issue here. What led them to being cursed was more so his pride, for he shouts his name to taunt the Cyclops. If ruthlessness is mercy was an actual message to take away from the narrative, it would have positive effects on the story, but it doesn't. Each time ruthlessness is acted upon, the characters are faced with dark consequences and ridden with pain over their actions. Instead, the message is actually a lie the characters tell themselves. The message speaks to Odysseus because if ruthlessness really does bring mercy, that means all of his cruelty will have had a purpose and bring him home. It's a way to justify his actions and try to cope. For he is crushed every time he chooses to be a monster. There is so much detail and purpose to this story that complements the bigger picture. I'm going to list some more details that I enjoy. Epic does such a great job of showing how Odysseus is intelligent without needing to tell us. He prepares ahead of time to outsmart his enemies. He tricks Athena into revealing herself after already impressing her during the hunt. During the Cyclops scene, he initially says he's nobody, and puts Lotus into his wine as a backup plan to knock him out in case the creature didn't accept their offering. He tricks the sirens into getting information. I'm sure there's more examples too. Although Penelope has a smaller role, I'll be talking about her in a bit, her intelligence is also illustrated, since she outsmarts him in the end by asking him to remove their bed. Odysseus is so desperate to prove himself to her that he doesn't realize her trick, revealing her wits. She had also set the challenge upon perhaps sensing his return, buying him time as she looks toward the storm. This intelligence is likely a part of why Odysseus loves her, for she can match his mind. I like how strong Odysseus is. He has an intimidating demeanor, especially at the end, and he is a man who will fight. I especially love how expressive he is in the musical. It makes the experience a whirlwind of emotion as we hear his thoughts, listen to him lead his men. He's an intense main character for this bloody story. And his family values, despite the devastation and horror, are admirable in the perspective of the audience. As a woman, if you're a man, just pretend for a second, would you rather your husband be like Odysseus of the movie, or of Epic? A man who contemplates his decision if he wants to come home, or a man who will destroy the world for a chance to make it back to you? Do I want to watch a rom-com? Nah, give me a trolley problem! Okay, let's quickly look at some other characters in Epic. First of all, the gods are included and majorly impact the story, yes! Their characterizations are full of personality and fun. I enjoyed their inclusion, especially Athena's relationship with Odysseus and Telemachus. I admire Penelope of Epic. She is a strong woman who protects her son and achingly waits for her husband, never giving up on him. Her love is eternal. She sets the challenge of stringing Odysseus' bow to her suitors, because she knows it's an impossible feat for these men. I find her intense family values to be heartwarming. Telemachus was pretty good as well. His characterization, I'd say, is similar to the movie, except he's more boyish and fun. The crew actually had personality, and their deaths felt significant emotionally. We're put into the minds of the men of Ithaca during Hold Them Down. It's disturbing, but the song gives detail to their thoughts, rather than them just being cartoonishly evil men. Again, the characters are filled with emotion, singing, "Where in the hell is our pride and our rage?" Alright, let's wrap all of this up with my review on the Odyssey. Starting with the topic I couldn't escape for weeks in the promotion of this film. The casting. And guess what? Yeah, it was distracting, who would have thought? In case you somehow have no idea about the casting, it's a classic case of diversity casting on top of all the actors being famous. I've seen some responses to the backlash say that the story takes place in the Mediterranean Sea, which is full of different ethnicities, meaning that having a multicultural cast in a modern retelling makes sense. In theory, I can see where they're coming from. If we were aliens and didn't have access to casting people from the Mediterranean Sea. How about, instead of casting notable actors who are of different races, they cast actors who are from the countries explored in the text? There isn't a single Greek actor in a principal role. Helen of Troy is black despite her character description, and Eurylochus says we're Greeks while being obviously Indian. Yes, it's a modern retelling of an ancient myth, but imagine for a second that we did this to an ancient Chinese myth, or an African one. Imagine Chris Hemsworth as an emperor of ancient China and responding, well, it's a modern day retelling. Of course the interpretation is going to suit modern day Australian audiences. Personally, I don't mind ethnicity whatsoever. I'm simply annoyed that an ancient Greek story has no Greek actors in it. My yogurt is more Greek than this movie! I've seen some people say that Himesh Patel, who plays Eurylochus, actually suits the character description the most, with his tan skin and dark curly hair. And that's good, except he's obviously Indian! Matt Damon, Anne Hathaway, you aren't convincing me these people are from ancient Greece. Especially Tom Holland. This man is the most British-looking man I have ever seen. I can fully imagine him saying, "Chip chip cheerio, old chap." I mentioned it earlier, but on top of this casting, they sound American and speak like Americans. Honestly, I wasn't impressed by the architecture and locations. The Greeks are known to have some of the most gorgeous architecture, massive columns of marble and huge statues, but the locations seem to be huts or big concrete rooms. Also, the castle's layout felt like a theatre stage. One massive room, built for Shakespearean levels of eavesdropping. About Odysseus' bow, I thought they could have done something more stylized with the cinematography around it. because the shots were him shooting, then someone getting shot, where they could have done something a bit more interesting. But I liked the sound of the hunting song he makes. It sounds like I'm Just a Man from Epic. I wonder if they did it on purpose. Surely. I have some admittedly angry notes left over about the plot. How do we waste 10 years on a beach? Instead of showing the ache of being stranded for a decade, everyone simply says it and we move on. Like what? And then there's the giant night scene. An annoying child cries, runs away, and then these massive knights appear out of nowhere and start attacking everyone. I said they're confused, like, okay, random stuff is just happening. This moment is meant to make Odysseus look bad, since he chooses to run away rather than fight. But with the huge frames of these knights, it's completely logical to run away here. It didn't make him look bad because his men didn't stand a chance. They were getting smacked around. Once he's back on the ship, he shouts, "Wait!" in lowercase, as his men try and leave without waiting for everyone to make it. Nobody listens to him, and he looks like another soldier instead of a respectable figure being ignored. Also, he looks at Eurylochus while this happens, because he is the only crewmate we've bonded to as an audience. These random night whatevers are bloodthirsty objects of the plot. Like the Cyclops, they exist to drive the story forward rather than being interesting on their own. Telemachus' mentor is barely given a personality. All we know about him is that he has wise eyes, so when he dies there wasn't much to grieve. And about the dogs being harmed, I found it a little cheap. It's an easy way to summon emotion and rage to harm dogs, and it did impact the story. Eumaeus was having an awful time, but I felt that there should have been more of a reason to include it. Going back to the actors, the ones I liked most was Matt Damon obviously, Robert Pattinson, and Tom Holland. Elliot Page as Sinon did look a bit goofy since her frame was so small, but the only one I really had a problem was Charlize Theron as Calypso. She was emotionless, extremely soft-spoken. Also, she looks like she had plastic surgery or whatever, which took me out of my immersion for a second. About the story itself, I think it's solid. It has deep themes, decent characters, and a compelling plot moving the narrative forward. Also, the cinematography is nice, and I liked the music too. The Odyssey offers a lot as a war movie, and despite my negative notes, I think it's good. It's just not my cup of tea, and I went into it with expectations since I love Epic. And that's it! Let me know your thoughts about everything in the comments. How do you feel about the movie? And Epic, if you've listened to it as well. I think it's pretty obvious from the video that I didn't go into the movie as a Christopher Nolan fanatic, since I haven't seen many of his films yet. Left Interstellar though, that was beautiful. But I did go into it biased by Epic, so I wonder how different the opinions range on this film. If you're interested in supporting me and my work, I have a Patreon where I post all of my videos priority, ad-free, and uncensored. Also, I want to shout out Steven for giving me feedback on the script and making the amazing art for the channel. Thank you! Subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.